Ladies and gentlemen, top of the morning to you. We have this session 10 on the week, and we have a special guest. Uh, Jim talked about this guy, and now we called him and we put him to work right away. He got up early in the morning just to say hi, and who we're talking to, if you haven't figured it out, is Terry Michler, ladies and gentlemen, from
Hey,
St.
Kevin.
Louis, Missouri.
Top of the morning to you, Kevin.
All right then. And so the whole story goes is that all the feel of when you first heard about the United States National High School Champions League, you're in right away. It didn't take you nothing at all.
Oh, I've been a big advocate of the Champions League for a long time.
Oh my goodness! All right. Well, what we usually do, we have to, we look at Tim McAvoy and we say, "Stand up! We're going to applaud you." And
And he says, I'm already standing up.
but
You say,
that's
well, stand up on that chair then.
yeah. But that's select soccer, man. That's where it's at. The select soccer, all the gear, but the champions, the leagues, they all across the nation, they get that ball, they get that select ball, and I'm telling you, if they had the select ball back in my day, I think I might have made something of myself.
You think you could have caught it, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
It's a hard ball to keep up with. It's a great ball.
yes, it is, man. And
Hey,
so,
Kevin, truth be told, once I found out about the Champions League and the possibility of it and the fact that St. Louis could be included in it, my very, very first call, honest to God, my first call, we went to Tim McAvoy. And I said, here's what we're thinking about doing. You think you, through Select, would have any interest in getting on board with us? And knowing Tim like I did, I knew that he would be on board. He just had to take it to his higher ups and get approval. And came back with, yeah, we're glad to do it. Boy, haven't they done a great job so far with
oh,
us?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm putting Athletic Republic on notice saying, I want a soccer body, and you can use me as as the marketing tool that they do something with the whale. They're solid, and they do everything so well uh, for being a St. Louis sponsor. Athletic Republic.
If they can fix you, Kevin, that would be a guaranteed for anybody. We can fix the whales. We can fix you.
All
Give
right, then.
an
Yeah.
opportunity. That'd be a great promotional
Yes, I
for them.
can't wait. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you have some tidbits. You got your homework, and you're gonna lay the country out with them.
Okay, I got my 5 points, which is what everybody's been making. First of all, off the schedule here for the day. This is a great idea that you and Jim Hart came up with to do this daily uh, uh, Champions League news item uh, reference every day to keep everybody posted on what's new, what's going on, the fact that there's constant activity going on in this movement, and that you guys are moving on up, going forward with it. So, my points today, I'll get my 5 points. And my first point, and Jim mentioned this the other day in one of his uh, broadcasts, was I always start with why. I think why is always got to be the foundation of what's going on and what the purpose of. What's the purpose of it? Why do you do this? Why are we doing a Champions League? And I came up with 3 points here. One, and I think this was the first point that we all would agree on, is that we needed to raise the level of awareness of high school soccer in St. Louis and pretty much probably, I guess, around the rest of the country. Club soccer got into the academy system, and the kids were leaving high school soccer to go play academy. Academy came up with a rule that if you played academy, you couldn't play high school. So it wasn't an either or. It was one or the other. And so we needed to find a way to rejuvenate interest in high school soccer, and that was the first thing. The second thing about the Champions League is exciting is that it's to determine the best team in the area. Now, we all have state championships, and the state championships were always broken down in different classifications based on different criteria. But the Champions League doesn't go by that. Champions League is, if you're good enough to get in, no matter what classification you are, you can get in. So like in Missouri, for instance, we have 4 classes of soccer. But in the Champions League, we take in the 2 highest levels, 3 and 4, and any of the best that could be below that, which we've done in the past. So you win the Champions League, you're the best in the area because you're competing against the best. And then the third point was to replicate the standard of the highest soccer competition in the world, which is the Champions League. And I know people might argue the World Cup, but the World Cup's every 4 years. But the Champions League is every year. And so I think the fact that it's an annual thing and you have to qualify for it and makes it a little bit different than what's in its club base. It's not country based. So it's your best club teams that qualify for the Champions League, which leads me to my second point, the history of the Champions League. And I'm looking at this now at the UEFA, which is the Union of European Football Association. The UEFA Champions League, which is the European-based competition, which started in 1955. It was first called the European Club Cup Championship, where you had to win your league championship to be able to get into this tournament. So it was to start off with a small number of teams. I think the first go-around was 16 teams. It was single elimination. In 1992, it rebranded, and it went into some competition, more than single elimination. It added a few teams, and it was more of it was beginning of a pool play. It wasn't quite pool play, but it was beginning. In 1997, it expanded to full 32 teams, and then the pool play came in. So you had 8 groups of 4 teams. You played pool play, then you went to knockout stages, and so excuse me. Let's take a look at the United States National High School Champions League and to see the history there. In 2018, Tampa Bay with Jim Hart and Dave Wilson and a few others, Terry Vanderbeck, started the Champions League movement in the United States. And along with them, South Florida joined in, and then I think the following year, Polk County from Florida joined in. So initially, there were 3 teams in Florida that made up the Champions League. And then in 2024, St. Louis joined. And it was through Perry Vanderbeck, the St. Louis St. Louis person, who moved to Florida in high school, actually. After he finished high school, Perry was drafted number 1 by the Tampa Bay Rowdies and played professionally at age 17 and made Florida his permanent residence. So Perry's been very, very active, involved in soccer in the Florida area and beyond. And he thought this would be a good thing for St. Louis to get on board with. So he contacted us, and we took it from there. So in 2024, we joined, and I think next year in 2026, Manatee and Sarasota, Florida, are going to combine and have a Minnesota entry into the Champions League. So we're growing. So the history is that started in Europe in 1955 and started in the U.S. in the high school level in 2018. Let's talk about qualification along with the history. The European qualification started with the top 4 leagues, England, Spain, Italy, and Germany, each getting 4 teams in direct entry. They didn't have to qualify. They were league champions. That's all they had. That was their qualification. In addition to that, the 5th and 6th best leagues, which were France and Holland, France had 3 teams entered, and Holland had 2. And then in addition to that, the two champions of the Champions League and the European League, which we call the Europa League now, both of those winners were automatic entries into the next year's Champions League. And then it filled out the rest with 7 teams through qualification rounds. So each of the leagues now have certain spots that are direct entry and guaranteed, and the other levels are qualification rounds. So maybe if the 2 teams are entered with direct entry, maybe teams 3, 4, 5, and 6 qualify for another spot or 2. So that totals 32, and that's where it's at today. In our local Champions League in St. Louis, our qualification is that you have to win a district championship, or you have to have a high power ranking in the Missouri State power ranking system. And so we have 16 teams in our Champions League, and just under half, 7 of them come from district championships, and then the remaining 9 come from the power rankings. Now, the nice thing about our system that we have here in the States is that it's based individually on different regions and how the coaches want to establish their own criteria. So I'm going to get into that in just a second, but that's what we do in St. Louis. Florida has their procedures and criteria. Everybody that's going to join on will also have theirs. So we don't have a fixed mandated way that you must do it. You're able to pick what works best for your own given area. The third point of interest for me is the protocol. And we copy the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League, as close as we can. And so some of the things that we do are minor things, but they're different. And the purpose of being different is to say that this is a standard that's been established at the highest level. And as I said in the earlier part, we want to do our best to replicate that standard as much as we can. So we start with a ball stand, which isn't usually done at regular games. So the ball stand is put out right before the teams enter the field. Then there's the walkout, where the referees lead the teams out. The teams go single file, side by side behind the referees. The referee grabs the ball, and while this is going on, the anthem, the Champions League anthem, is being played over the public address system. So it adds a little bit of touch. It adds a lot. Actually, it adds a lot of class, is what it does. So you get the ball stand, the walkout, and the anthem. That's the protocol. And then we're using the select game ball. Every game is featuring the select ball. So we've got the highest quality ball to match up with what we think is the high product on the field. The fourth point I'm talking about is growth. As I said earlier, it started with Tampa Bay, South Florida, and Polk County came in. So Florida had 3 teams initially, and then St. Louis joined to make the fourth city involved. And next year we go with Manatee and Sarasota. So we're up to 5, but we've been talking, and Jim Hart primarily has been the go-to guy and the road runner, so to speak, making contact with anybody and everybody, and just promoting the Champions League and taking questions and giving the layout of the land of how the Champions League works, what the format is. We've got, I would say, 20 plus teams now that have expressed an interest to want to know more, and some of the teams are closer than others in terms of how close they might be to actually joining. But we generated a lot of interest, and I see the numbers growing. Might take a little while, but I really think once we get a few more on board, that it's going to take off big time. And the thing about it is, it's not a competition necessarily as much as it is a movement. So there might be some competition. For instance, in Florida, you got the I-95 series where Tampa plays South Florida. And in Missouri and St. Louis, we're trying to get Kansas City on board, and they're getting closer by the day. And if we get Kansas City on board, we'll have the I-70 rivalry, where St. Louis will play Kansas City for the Missouri Champions League championship. So that's some interesting stuff to look forward to, and coming down the future. The fifth point, I label it as importance, and it's the 5 pillars, and the 5 pillars are extremely important. This is the only consistent thing that will be present from location to location. Everyone will abide by these 5 principles. How you go about doing it is the leeway that you have, but you will abide by these principles. The first principle is one of them. They're all important, but the first one is really important because it's free. It doesn't cost anybody anything to participate. And that's a big, big factor because unfortunately today club soccer has priced a lot of underserved people out of the picture due to rising costs, transportation issues, training grounds not being close enough for the people to get to them. So this is, hey, everybody goes to high school. Everybody goes to high school. So as we do this as an extension of high school, everybody's there. And nobody's going to have to pay anything for it. Even the schools don't pay. There's no entry fee. And this is where the sponsors become extremely important. You know, in St. Louis, we've got the select soccer program, as we talked about before. We've got the Fast Lane convenience store as a sponsor, and we've got Athletic Republic. We have 3 really solid sponsors, and they offset the cost. Their donations offset the cost of the operation. And so that's number 1. It's free. Number 2, it's merit-based. And as I said earlier, in the big picture, in the European League, the merit base was winning the league, and then it opened up to where you could get in with qualifying competition. Maybe if you didn't win the league, but you were second or third or fourth, you could have a playoff and get in. So, as I said before, also our qualification is you got to win a district championship or have the highest power ranking. So it's not, we want to play. I'm going to raise my hand and say, yeah, put us in. Here's a check. Let us in. No, that doesn't work that way. You have to earn your way in. And the significant thing about that is the teams are picked at the end of this season to play for next season. So maybe you got a great team this year, but you lose a lot. Maybe next year you might not be as good. So the incentive is, to be ready to play with whatever team you've got. So we pick a team for next year based on your team's finish in this current year. The third area of the importance in the third pillar is this metro-based. So whatever is you're considering as your metropolitan area. And the idea is that it shouldn't take a 2-hour bus ride to get you to the game to play. It should be convenient enough that it's not going to cost you an excessive amount of time to get there, play, and get back. So metro-based. Like in St. Louis, for instance, we have St. Louis City and St. Louis County combined. But we have a limitation. We have just across the river, we have Southern Illinois, which could be, close enough to be considered. But maintaining our metro-based philosophy, we're keeping it right now into the St. Louis area. And we're hoping that Southern Illinois will pick up and have their own entry fees sooner than later. The fourth area is coach collaboration. And I mentioned this indirectly before. Well, how do you go about establishing your criteria? How many teams do you have? How do you base the selection? What's the qualification rounds? All that is coach collaboration. Coaches get together and say, here's how we're going to do it. And they all agree on it. And the fifth point is student empowerment. And we have a student trophy, an award called the Virtuoso Award, which is given to the outstanding player in the final. But we also have a scholarship award that comes through one of the sponsors to an outstanding student athlete. May not be the best player, but may have been significant in terms of how much he helps the team, how much he helps the community. Just somebody that's special in different ways that makes a difference. That's our student empowerment award. So our 5 pillars are: it's free, it's merit-based, metro-based, it's coach collaboration, and it's student empowered. And we couldn't pull this off if we didn't have the support of our sponsors. They've been there from the beginning, and they're critically important to the cause. Kevin, that's my report for today.
Man, wonderful. You're like a natural with this. Be on call. We might have to call you, and you, at a moment's notice, jump on. So there you have it, Coach Terry. It's on this way. We're moving, and we're gonna end it up here, but we'll take fan mail and we'll ship it right to you. All right.
Good day. Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. This has been the United States National High School Champions League. On the move, on the go. Bye-bye.